Stand. All persons having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh. Give your attendance and you shall be heard. God save the Queen.
Admission of lawyers. Maria Petra Arachi.
Please the court. I move that Maria Petra Arachi be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Maria Petra Arachi be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Kristen Alexandra J. Brown.
May it please the court, I move that Kristen Alexandra J. Brown be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Kristen Alexandra J. Brown be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Rose Margaret Shaw Davidson.
May it please the court, I move that my daughter Rose Margaret Shaw Davidson be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Rose Margaret Shaw Davidson be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Yusi Zhang.
May it please the court, I move that Yusi Zhang be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Yusi Zhang be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Kiran Arunachalam Malai.
May it please the court, I move that Kiran Arunachalam Malai be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Kiran Arunachalam Malai be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Ria Nisha Rana.
May it please the court, I move that Ria Nisha Rana be admitted as a lawyer of the honourable court.
Let Ria Nisha Rama be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Jessica Lee Reid.
May it please the court, I move that Jessica Lee Reid be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Jessica Lee Reid be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Atticus Jack Nolan Saunders.
May it please the court, I move that Atticus Jack Nolan Saunders be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Atticus Jack Nolan Saunders be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Chirag Samir Shah.
May it please the court, I move that Chirag Samir Shah be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Shira Samir Shah be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Cassandra Rebecca Sten.
May it please the court, I move that my daughter Cassandra Rebecca Sten be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Cassandra Rebecca Sten be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Lisa Shania Temushin.
May it please the court, I move that Lisa Shania Tamushin be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Lisa Shania Tamushin be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Lyndon Mark White.
May it please the court, I move that my father, Lyndon Mark White, be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Lyndon Mark White be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Nicole Francis Williams.
May it please the court, I move that Nicole Francis Williams be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Nicole Francis Williams be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Joanna Natalie Zenikos.
May it please the court, I move that Joanna Natalie Zenikos be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Joanna Natalie Zenikos be admitted as a lawyer of this court. It will be necessary for the purpose of swearing an oath and making a declaration that all those who have been just admitted, please stand up but remain in your current places. Could all the admittees please stand?
Maria Petra Arachi. Kristen Alexandra J. Brown. Rose Margaret Shaw Davidson. Yusi Zhang. Kiran Arunachalam Malai. Ria Nisha Rana. Jessica Lee Reid. Atticus Jack Nolan Saunders. Chirag Samir Shah. Cassandra Rebecca Sten. Lisa Shania Temuchin. Lyndon Mark White. Nicole Francis Williams. Joanna Natalie Xenakos. Do you severally swear or declare and affirm that you will truly and honestly conduct yourselves in the practice of a lawyer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and that you will faithfully serve as such in the administration of the laws and usages of this state according to the best of your knowledge, skill and ability? Please say, "So help me God," or "I do."
Please be seated. Now that the formal part of the proceedings has ended, I'd like to welcome you to the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and particularly to our ceremonial court. Present with me on the bench today is Justice Leeming to my right, who is a member of the Court of Appeal, and Justice Kavanagh to my left, who is a judge of the Common Law Division. Together we constitute the court that has, in exercise of its jurisdiction, admitted you to practice. As we gather here today, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. We recognise the long-standing and enduring customs and traditions of Australia's First Nations, and acknowledge with deep regret the role our legal system has had in perpetrating many injustices against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. To all the new lawyers here today, welcome to the legal profession. Today is a day for celebration. You have all worked extremely hard to get here, through caffeine-fueled nights and obscure problem questions, reading countless wafer-thin pages of textbook, and more cases than you can ever hope to remember. Don't worry, you don't have to remember most of them. You have entered the world of eggshell skulls, encountered this mysterious, reasonable person, and have understood that the Constitution consists of so much more than the vibe of the thing. In becoming a lawyer, you have today joined a centuries-old profession with ancient origins. The custom of advocates swearing an admission oath dates back to the 12th century. This court first admitted lawyers to practice in 1824, and by 1830 the name of lawyers were entered onto rolls in this state. You have now become part of this tradition some 200 years later. Perhaps, for some of you, or for your family and friends, that's how long it feels like you've been studying. On that note, I'm pleased to welcome those with you today or watching on the live stream. For many of you, the support of your family and friends has been invaluable. No doubt, they have also often been on the receiving end of your finely polished skills of argument and persuasion. I do hope you take the time to thank them today. The oath of affirmation you have made today is a serious one and deserves solemn regard. Whether you work in private practice, at the bar, in a community legal centre, or an entirely different field, you should be known for your honesty, your integrity, and your commitment to justice. It is in acknowledgement of this weighty responsibility that we observe today with the unique formalities, including the moving of lawyers, swearing of oaths, and even our somewhat unusual ceremonial robes. I recall on one occasion, some years ago, a young member of the audience asked if we were doing Santa photos after the ceremony. I was terribly sorry to have to tell him that I was forbidden to do it. However, although we mark this occasion with formality and tradition, not everything in the legal profession remains unchanging. You'll be unsurprised to hear that last year we had to adapt quite a bit. COVID-19 meant a rapid shift to increased use of virtual courtroom setups and technology to ensure access to justice continued in the midst of a pandemic. Things didn't always go smoothly, as those with me on the bench can probably attest to. I can't remember if they were one of the many judges who made complaints over the last year. And there have been real difficulties to grapple with problems in terms of open justice, effective communication and fairness to participants. And occasionally a lawyer might even get stuck behind a Zoom kitten filter. But for all the challenges we faced, the impetus is greater than ever before for us to prioritise flexibility and accessibility. Better use of technology and increased working from home arrangements have profound implications for how our legal system interacts with many people, including those in rural and remote areas, those with a disability, medical conditions, or carers' responsibilities. As the newest members of the profession, you are at the forefront of innovation in the law and have a unique opportunity to see through changes so that justice is then done openly and equitably. There are, of course, other changes that deserve attention. When we think of the diversity of the legal profession, we encounter the duality that we have come very far and that much still needs to be done. Though women were originally not permitted to practice, since 2018, women have made up more than half of all the solicitors with a practising certificate in New South Wales and currently make up 63% of solicitors under the age of 30. Women occupy many of the most senior positions in the law, including, of course, the Chief Justice of Australia. However, women continue to face challenges of representation, including amongst judges of this court and amongst barristers, particularly in speaking roles before the High Court. It is heartening, however, to see that the local court of New South Wales has almost achieved gender parity among magistrates, but we must not be complacent about these issues. There are other noticeable diversity concerns that we must face head-on. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and people from diverse cultural backgrounds continue to be alarmingly underrepresented in the legal profession, and particularly within the judiciary and the ranks of senior counsel. We must also be alert to barriers to the profession for people from less privileged backgrounds. Law should not be a profession for the wealthy, and the idea that students may be dissuaded from studying law by the cost of a law degree, which this year has again increased, or because of other systemic issues, is troubling. Not just this, but we will only become a truly diverse profession when barriers to advancement are broken down and people from different backgrounds are properly supported in a collegiate and inclusive environment free from harassment and discrimination. These issues are fundamental to a just and transparent legal system and to the legitimacy of the rule of law. We need diverse representation amongst advocates and judges so that all people who become involved in our justice system can be properly heard and fairly engaged with by a system reflective of our broader community. Despite these challenges, there is real scope for change. There is far greater diversity of background amongst junior lawyers than those who have been around for as long as me. And, for example, you only need to look around the courtroom and then at the paintings on the wall to see that that's so. You're in a unique position as new lawyers who are entering the profession at a time when more than ever your words and actions are having an impact for good. You are being heard and taken seriously when you agitate to correct injustices, whether it be speaking out about unsustainable working cultures, sexual harassment or bullying within the profession, unfair laws or systemic failings affecting our society's most vulnerable. I urge you to continue to speak up for these things because they truly matter. You are the future of the profession and will steer the direction that it takes. As a lawyer, you will need to make difficult ethical decisions at times. With regard to our personal characteristics, lawyers have been the butt of jokes for centuries. Cynics would say that there are, of course, only a handful of lawyer jokes. The rest are true stories. Jokes aside, you must use the tools you have developed to think critically and not compromise on your fundamental duties to the court and the administration of justice and other ethical duties which you must uphold. Now that you're lawyers, you can get paid to argue instead of arguing for free. But of course, there's a lot more to it than that. You're an advisor, a problem solver, a mediator, and an advocate for the marginalised. As you go about your day-to-day work, remember that you're not merely dealing with the law in a vacuum or as a series of abstractions, but law as it applies to people's lives. For this reason, You must try to deliver legal services competently and fearlessly with courtesy and integrity. Justice Gageler, before he was a High Court judge, once said, "You must be prepared to give the same answer to the same questions for the same reasons, no matter who asks the question or for what purpose or in what context the asking may occur." This is foundational to upholding the rule of law. For those of you who will practice law, and I hope many of you do so, the way you communicate information to others will have profound consequences for access to justice. For a non-lawyer, the law is often incomprehensible. One of your roles as a lawyer will be to make law accessible to others, sometimes by deciphering legal complexities, other times by deciphering poor legal drafting, and sometimes both. One thing you will regrettably strike throughout your career is legislation which seems carefully crafted with the object of ensuring that no one can understand it. Your task is not just to understand it, but to explain it clearly to those whose rights and interests are vitally affected by it. And as lawyers, we must not keep the law locked up as something knowable only to us. We must come down from that ivory tower. A client reading your advice should be empowered to understand your meaning, not mystified and confused. So be clear and concise in your writing and your speaking. Plain English is powerful. Consider, do I really need to say aforementioned or herewith? Must I sprinkle in those Latin phrases? Should I really use double negatives, tautologies and wordy clauses that take up a whole page? I would suggest the answer to these questions is usually no. The best advocates can make their point simply and succinctly. Some of the most experienced lawyers and judges could sometimes use that reminder. I remember one very experienced lawyer writing a 20-page advice. The first 10 pages set out in great lengths the argument for one point. The second 20 pages set out in great length the argument for the opposing argument, and the last page was a blank. It didn't help the client very much. So don't pick up bad habits from those of us who are old and crusty. I also want to speak about failure. I would not be surprised if there were quite a few overachievers and perfectionists in the room today. Even so, at various points of your career, you will make mistakes, some minor, some more serious. When you do make mistakes, your commitment to honesty, integrity, and the administration of justice means that you must take responsibility, correct what you can, and learn from those errors. You must fail at times in order to grow. I myself have made many mistakes over the years, far, far too many to remember. Even as Chief Justice, my decisions have on occasion been successfully appealed to the High Court. At this point, I'm probably obliged to tell you that the High Court is never wrong. But, in fact, at times, even dissenting High Court judgments have later become the law. Finally, I want to emphasise that your mental health is extremely important. This may sound unexpected at this type of ceremony, but the law is not everything. There may be times when you feel overwhelmed, burnt out or distressed. If you do, you should not be afraid to seek professional help or take a step back when you need to. Also remember that the law is a collegiate profession, and in times of difficulty, the support of your peers will prove invaluable. Although you might find it hard to believe, I was admitted quite a long time ago. I lost my first case, and I lost many more after that, probably more than I won. Throughout my 35 years in practice, I could always count on other barristers on my floor to share my disappointment at the unfairness of the verdict, the sly tactics of opposing counsel, and most often, I regret to say, the obtuseness of the judge or judges before whom I was appearing. I do hasten to add that I don't include either of my fellow judges on the bench in that comment. I didn't appear before either of them. Finally, on behalf of all the judges of the Supreme Court, I once again congratulate you on your admission and welcome you to the legal profession. The Court will now adjourn.
All stand.